Hello viewers and welcome back to Caravaggio. So I've kind of been gone for a while and I've kind of been putting out vlogs and I kind of don't like that anymore. So we're going back to our roots. Yes, that's right. We're going back to doing videos on art history. Yes. So, as many of you don't know, I recently convocated from my degree, which is a Bachelor's of Arts in Art History and French with a minor in Economics. Here is the woman herself. Take a look. Am I an art historian now? I do believe I am. So, now, when I post my videos, you know that this is top quality material, which is being produced by an art history graduate. So I just hope now no one thinks I'm a joke. I'm the real deal. This is real art history coming to you live with a real degree. Anyways, now for today's video, if you do recall, about 2 years ago, I think two years ago, I posted a video where I rated my favorite Irish castles. And that was an immensely fun video, and I thought I would recreate that, but instead we're going to be rating paintings by my namesake, by Caravaggio. Yes, I am Caravaggio, but that's because my parents were slightly influenced by the Italian artiste. Anyways, so I have compiled the list of my top 5 favorite paintings by Caravaggio, and I thought I would explain why and maybe a little few fun facts about them so you can share with your friends and look like a connoisseur of Caravaggio paintings. So let us get into it. Okay, so starting from rock bottom, but it's not absolute rock bottom, it's just my 5th favorite Caravaggio piece would probably be the Entombment of Christ. Now, there's nothing that is jumping out at me, per se. It's just the way that Caravaggio does his paintings. Anyway, so this having a dark background and well-lit, bright characters is called chiaroscuro. I do not speak Italian, I speak French, so hopefully this is close enough. But yeah, so basically uses strong contrast between light and shadow, and it's just coming from some direction. There's no sunlight, there's not necessarily a window or a light that is shining onto the characters, but it is a light that is coming from somewhere. So you can definitely see that in the Entombment of Christ. There is this powerful light on the characters, and the only sort of subject matter that, other than the characters that the light shines upon is sort of that platform they're on. So we're not distracted by anything in the background or anything in the foreground. We're only focusing on the characters. So he's really popular for sort of this light technique. He also is impeccable with depicting the human body. As you see in Christ, you see all the muscles and the tendons and the veins, and just, you have to have a very high level understanding of anatomy and the human body to be able to depict all the different muscle groups, individual muscles, and also sort of like the tendons that are there as well. So, and I mean, it's fair because at this point, many artists did do a lot of studies in anatomy and the human body because they wanted to depict it in a really sort of idealized and perfect way. So these are perfect bodies. This is by no means what the average Italian would look like in the, when was this? In this, I want to say 17th century? Let me just double check. Yes, in the 17th century. So they are definitely idealized, perfected bodies. And that was something that everyone was painting at this point, except for one that we'll see. Yeah, so that's one reason, or those are the two reasons that I really, really like this. Just the way the bodies are depicted. Even, so who is it? The man who is carrying Christ's legs, if you even look at his legs and his calves, the muscle definition, even though it's a leg of like a peasant or someone that's not very important to the story, they are still being depicted with this idealized body, which I thought was very interesting that all the characters have this, not just Christ, who's arguably the most important in this painting. It's everyone. So I would say that's the reason. And then let's not even talk about the fabric. It is incredible, all those folds and creases and wrinkles. It's almost like you could just reach in and just touch the fabric and iron it yourself. Not possible, it is a painting, but it's so lifelike that you want to do that. So for all these reasons, I love this painting. It's not my favorite, I do appreciate it, so it's at number 5. Oh, also for information on the painting, this is the Entombment of Christ, painted between 1602 to 1604, and it is currently in the Vatican museums. So a lot of these are actually in Italy, specifically Rome. So if you want to see the majority of these paintings, pop a trip to Italy. It seems like everyone's in Italy this summer. Fair enough. So that's where you can find it. Okay, so it's surprising to me and surprising to the people around me that this painting should be at number 4, because I am an avid horse lover. I have loved horses since I was a young lady. I still love horses. I used to ride horses. I'm gonna get back into riding horses. And this painting has a horse, and it's only at number 4. It should be at number 1 according to my preferences, but no, it is not. And it's just because it doesn't really speak to me, sort of, in the way that the other ones do. So this one is called The Conversion of St. Paul. I do believe it also goes by the name of The Conversion on the Way to Damascus, but I was taught that this was named The Conversion to St. Paul, so that is a name we will be using for this painting. So the Conversion of St. Paul was painted in 1601, and it's currently in the Santa Maria del Popolo Museum, Cathedral. To be honest, I've never visited it, so that's where it is, Santa Maria del Popolo. So, you know, anyone in Italy, head on over. So let's get started with this painting. So let's start with the horse. So I had just mentioned how Caravaggio likes to paint in chiaroscuro as well as having idealized bodies. And so here, exact same concept, very dark background. The foreground and the middle ground are occupied by the characters, and only the characters. There are no objects lying around. We're not interested in the floor that they're in or the space that we're in. We're only interested in the characters themselves. So again, we see this light probably being produced from the right side of the painting, shining onto the horse, shining onto St. Paul, and the man behind the horse that's sort of holding him. And we also have these idealized bodies as well. St. Paul is a little harder to see. He does have this idealized body, but we're mostly concerned that he's on the ground. And we see the horse. This is not a horse that spends a lot of time lazing about in the stable or in the pasture. This is a horse that has lots of muscle, tone, definition. It is a very fit and strong horse. And what always was interesting to me, that he would depict an animal, a horse, as having an idealized body. So it's not just restricted to humans who have these sort of idealized figures. It also includes animals. So I always thought that was interesting. One of the reasons that, or the main reason that this painting does make the top 5 list, but is only in 4. And it's only in 4 because of the horse. If the horse weren't there and St. Paul was lying on the ground, it would not be in this list at all. And I'm so sorry, Caravaggio, but that is how I feel. So, yes, that is number 4. So, number 3 is The Calling of St. Matthew. This painting was painted between 1599 and 1600, very early on, and it is currently in the Cappella Contarelli, and it has been there since it was created in 1600. So, The Calling of St. Matthew. The reason that this is a number 3 is because all of the little details that are in it are just, you kind of do have to have an understanding of 17th century iconography and imagery to understand what's going on. And most of these paintings were commissioned by the church to, we could go on about this, but it was a time of the Counter-Reformation when the church wanted to bring back its observers, churchgoers, its members. So they were commissioning a lot of paintings by very prominent artists, so sort of to instill the idea of Christ and Christianity back into the minds of the churchgoers through imagery, of course. So most of these are very, they're biblical. They all have been, including this one. So if you look, okay, the chiaroscuro is still here. It's this, but it is a little different. It is coming from a light source rather than just a mysterious light source. But if you look right under the line that separates the light from the shadow, there's a man pointing his finger, and right beside the man that's pointing his finger, you can see a little light streak, and that is actually a halo. So I do believe he is the one with his arm. I see, I understand now. So the man pointing his arm, that is Christ, and you can tell because of this halo. And the first time I saw this, I did not pick up on that at all. I was like, who is this guy pointing? What is he doing? But that is Christ. And I found that out because my professor told us. She said, guys, if you're not Christians, you don't understand the iconography that well, Christ. And I was like, wow, thank you. I'm not very religious. So I do often find myself getting lost in all of these religious paintings, motifs, iconography, but I found my way, so it's all right. So that's probably one of the reasons why I like this painting, is just because it's a little hidden surprise to see the halo. I also quite love that stark separation on the wall between the light and the shadow. And that separation is not really represented in the characters. They all have their faces lit up. They all have some body part that is being hit by the light. So you don't see the light and shadow in the characters, but you see it on the wall. I've always thought that was very cool, how he did that. And they're all gambling, playing poker, doing what they have to do. But if you look at their face, there's so much detail, especially in the man who is sitting like this. Like, are you talking to him? All the singular strands of hair and the wrinkled of surprise on all of the gamblers' faces is just very impressive. So for these reasons, this one is the number 3. Right? Just number 3. And you can still see sort of idealized bodies, a little bit less so. They are covered in a lot of clothing. And I think the last, sort of one other reason why I quite like this one compared to others is the way that Christ is pointing is sort of resembles the two fingers that almost touch, and I think it's the Creation of Adam by Michelangelo. So I guess it's a nod to another painting, another master. May or may not be, but that's what it resembles, and a lot of art historians concur that that is actually a sort of nod to Michelangelo. But regardless, it's quite nice. Okay, so we're nearing the top. Well, we are at the top. My second favorite Caravaggio painting is probably the Cardsharps, which was painted in 1594, very early on, and it's currently in the Kimball Art Museum, Fort Worth, Texas. So like I said, most can be found in Italy, but this one is in Texas. You're probably wondering, what is a Cardsharp? Cardsharp is someone who uses deception and skill to win at like a gambling or a poker game. So if you see the young man in the front with the pink feather, how he has cards in his back pocket, sort of, he is a Cardsharp. He's using deception to win this game. So he has cards hidden, he can pull them out at any moment. A cheater. So what we need to look at first is what we had said about chiaroscuro. I am so sorry, I'm going to stumble upon that word probably for a while, but that is not really prevalent in this painting. It's just, we don't see that stark contrast between light and shadow. It's very illuminated, the entire painting is. Most of the shadows are created by the feathers or the hands or the board that they have at the very bottom, but the rest is very well lit. I also want to draw your attention to their outfits. These would have been very expensive outfits at the time, probably silk, the feathers, imported into Italy from the various ports they have from around the world. So this is no laughing matter. These are presumably wealthy young men. So the costumes are Venetian, and we know this just because since Venice was a port, many silks and fabrics and many goods were traded through the ports of Venice from like Turkey or various parts of Asia. So anyone who sort of has this more silky, maybe imported look, most likely got them from Venice. So these are wealthy Venetian people in extravagant Venetian outfits. So what I really loved about this painting was that it was replicated by Georges de la Tour, and that painting is called The Cardsharp with the Ace of Diamonds. And that one, I love that one. I love Georges de la Tour, and I love that painting. And when I realized that it was influenced by Caravaggio's Cardsharps, I was like, oh, no wonder. I love Caravaggio, and I love these Cardsharps, and I love the original. So that is just fabulous. And so many variations or copies have been made by different artists. Georges de la Tour is just one of them, and I think he made 2 variations. Same with Caravaggio. There are many other ones, okay, maybe like 2 or 3, of the Cardsharps that he had painted. So I quite like this one. And I like that it doesn't follow the trend of the chiaroscuro and the idealized bodies. I like that it's something different. And we know it's going to be different because it was painted about 6 or 7 years before the other ones were painted. So in an artist, you can always see how they transition from the start to the end of their career and how their style changes over time. And you see that with him too. You see him go from this to more of the chiaroscuro that we know Caravaggio by. That's number 2. And now, number 1. Okay, so for number 1, my absolute favorite painting by Caravaggio is the Bacchus, which was painted in 1596, and is currently housed in the Uffizi Gallery in Florence. So not Rome, but still Italy. So starting off, I'll let you viewers, what are some differences you see between this one and sort of number 5, 4, and 3? Well, you would be right if you said the chiaroscuro. Not really seen here. The background is illuminated, he is illuminated, but it's not with a light that's concentrated in one area. It's spread across his entire body, almost as if you were in the sun, and the whole sun was just illuminating your body. So there's no one specific light source like the other ones that we had seen. He still has this very idealized body, but this is also because Bacchus is a god. So are you really gonna depict a god without an idealized body? Absolutely not. And this painting was also, it was commissioned by a member of the church. It was commissioned by Cardinal Del Monte. So not exactly the church. And it makes sense. Why would the church want a painting of Bacchus? There is no reason for that. It is not a Christian motif. It will not bring people to the cathedrals. It will not reintroduce people to the religion. It really does nothing useful. So, in a private collection it belongs. But what I wanted to share was that Bacchus is the Roman counterpart to Dionysus, who's the Greek god, and they are the gods of wine, inebriation, fertility, and theater. So he's known to be super admirable and very gentle to those who agree with him, but very cross and angry, cruel, mischievous to those who cross him. So we want to maintain on a friendly note with Mr. Bacchus. Main reasons, I guess, why I love this painting so much is A, in the model that is being used to represent Bacchus, and B, in the motifs that we see. So starting with the model, at this point in time, it was not condemned and not surprising to see older men having relationships with young boys. Unfortunately, this is something that was going on all throughout the 17th century at least. So it's been said that perhaps the model for Bacchus is a young man that Caravaggio was sort of infatuated with or was interested in. It has also been speculated that using a young boy was supposed to represent Cardinal Del Monte's sort of affection towards other young boys he had, and that he did have a lot of relationships with young boys, and this was known in his inner circle. So those are the two reasons why art historians think that Caravaggio used a young man in specific to represent Bacchus. The other reason that I quite like this painting is because of the motifs. So I think that we talked about the Vanitas theme when I talked about the Memento Mori, but here we use youth and pleasure. No. Here we hint at the Vanitas theme that youth and pleasure are fleeting because of all the rotten fruit that we see. So while the young Bacchus is representing youthfulness and pleasure, and the wine also represents this, the rotting fruit is representing the idea that everything must succumb to death and rot and fermentation, which also relates to wine and Bacchus, but there are a lot of ideas of this. Sort of the beauties in life are fleeting. Our youthfulness is constantly fleeting. So I do believe that it's trying to show this transience of life, but you do have to already know what vanitas means to understand. But luckily we sort of covered it in a previous video, so you should have a good understanding of it. But the one sort of last thing I wanted to say about this painting, I could go on. I do really like it. I quite enjoy looking at it. And one day I will see it in person. But compared to the other paintings we looked at, this painting is directly interacting with the viewer. Instead of looking at a scene that we are not involved in, we are just bystanders in. So I guess the Entombment of Christ. We are looking at this. We're not exactly involved in the scene, we are bystanders. We're observing this. But we're not interacting with the characters at all. in Bacchus, we are interacting with Bacchus. He is offering us a glass of wine that we can either accept or decline. And I really do love when paintings interact with the audience. You feel that you are being brought into this world rather than just watching the world from the outside. So if you can imagine that you're going to accept this wonderful glass of wine from the god of wine himself, that is a great fantasy to immerse yourself in. So these are my top 5 Caravaggio paintings, and I hope you guys like them as well, and I hope you understand why I like them. And honestly, if you want, let me know in the comments, what are your favorite Caravaggio paintings? What are your favorite paintings in general? Why? And I hope that my little art history videos help you learn a little bit more about art history. It can be daunting because there's so much to learn, and it can be pretentious at times, and you don't want to say something incorrectly and have people in museums be like, oh, they don't know what they're talking about. I will make sure that does not happen. I will teach you all the essentials you need to know about art history, and together we can analyze and understand these important paintings together. So I hope you liked today's video, and I will be having some more art history themed videos very soon. I'm very excited, and I'll see you then. Ta-ta!